And post. All right. So let me get started. Hi, um, my name is Terrell Carter. Um, and what I want to do is just take some time to talk about the speech that got me fired. Um, so a little bit of background. This happened a year ago, almost a year ago. Um, in the month of January, 2025 was a roller coaster of a year. In 2025, um, I was fired, um, moved, my car was stolen, so I got a new car, and I got a new job eventually. Um, but as we're reflecting, as many of us are, on this past year, I was just thinking about all of the ups and downs and all the things that happened in 2025. And it kicked off with me being fired in the month of January uh, as a result of something that happened in December of 2024. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of history. I did a year of Public Allies, did that AmeriCorps year with Public Allies, and I'm so proud of the people who are part of my class and the things that they're doing and are still involved in reaching out, helping the community, and so many incredible things. And so I did that year of Public Allies, and part of our year, we were placed with a nonprofit organization. Everybody was working with a nonprofit organization as a part of their year in Public Allies. And so I was partnered with an organization that I will not name, but they do incredible work around homelessness. And so I was happy to be partnered with them. Uh, while I was partnering with them, I was working with young people who were staying in a shelter. I was planning activities for them, and I loved the mission of the organization. I do love, and I say talking about since, but I loved at the time the mission of the organization and what the organization stood for. And so when that AmeriCorps year was over, I applied for a job. Um, I applied for a program specialist job. I worked in the particular building that I was once, uh, interning, I guess you could say, with AmeriCorps in. And then I kind of moved to a couple of different other sites, moved around, worked that job part-time, um, worked at one point part-time on the weekends overnight. And so during the course of time, I was, trying to find employment, working other jobs. At one point, I was working Monday through Friday at another job, and then I would come Friday nights overnight, Saturday nights overnight at the shelter program. And so I worked in a few different programs in this organization. Around 2023, um, I had was in the process of accepting the role of pastor at Green Grove Missionary Baptist Church, and there was a position with this organization for community engagement. Um, I saw that position. I thought, well, this could fall right in line with pastoring, working with the community, working with nonprofit organizations, really having the opportunity to get the word out about the work that the organization does. I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to connect and to network. And it kind of got me out of direct service, but really seeing the opportunity to share the stories, to create MOUs and partnerships with other organizations. And it was, um, I had fun with it. um, there was this sense that we were creating what that role and what that position would look like. There was a lot of learning and stretching, and I was trying to find ways to fold the community engagement piece in with the work I do as pastor, the work that I'm doing in other communities and neighborhoods. How can we um, collaborate and network, and how could we, continue to amplify the vision and the mission of the organization in ways? And so I kind of saw it as an opportunity to sort of work more on the administrative side of this nonprofit, but how could we expand upon, you know, the mission? And so so around this time, now this is around year 8 of working with this organization, and we're learning, we're figuring things out. Um, we're growing. There's some pitfalls. I had conversations with social media manager of the organization and just different things that we could do, and different ways that I could help support and sort of leverage some of the skills that I have in terms of being a pastor once again, and working with this particular organization. And so that's where we were. That's what we did. Um, and now I just want to jump into what I really came to talk about, and that is the speech that got me fired. Um, yeah, to be quite honest, it was a little, nope, I'm lying. Uh, this is kind of triggering, and I'm kind of doing processes, and I don't have any notes, but I'll just kind of share with you um, my experience and what happened. So it is December of 2024, and a friend of mine reaches out to me, and he says that there is a Hanukkah and Kwanzaa celebration that is going to happen. And they had a rabbi who would talk about Hanukkah, but they were looking for someone who could talk about Kwanzaa, particularly looking for a pastor to do it. At this point in my job, we're continuing to look for ways to do the job and look for projects and really crafting what this would be. And so I um, said, sure, because for me, as I had attended CAPS meetings and meetings with other nonprofit organizations, the job really began to be a lot of networking. How can we get our services to those who need them? And how can we partner? How can we expand funding? How can we make these connections? And in my mind, I felt like this would be an amazing opportunity to go to City Hall, to meet public officials. And what I usually did in my capacity was I would go and have a meeting with someone. We met with the person in charge of outreach at New Life. We set up meetings all across the city. And usually, if I met someone, we would have that meeting and I would give them my card. Hey, let's follow up with an email. Let's look for ways that we're able to partner and support. And so, in my mind, the idea of being able to have this speech on Kwanzaa would be a great representation for the organization and for the role and et cetera. And so I said, yes, I would do speech. I was told to submit a bio. And so I emailed the bio listing myself as a pastor in the Inglewood community and the community engagement coordinator of the organization. I sent the bio in the day of the speech. I was working in the field as I normally did because my position was remote. And so I drove downtown. I got parking. and I went in to give my speech on Kwanzaa. This was a Hanukkah and Kwanzaa celebration, and so I don't even remember what my speech was, but my speech was around the principles of Kwanzaa and how we could employ them to help those in need, how we should stand together. Y'all know the Kwanzaa principles. And so I kind of, in the speech, went through the Kwanzaa principles and about our responsibility as humanity to help one another, to collaborate with one another, and all of those types of things. I sent in the bio stating that I was representing my organization. Because I was representing the organization, this will make sense later. I did not clock out. I did not do this during lunch. I was on the clock because, in my mind, me going to City Hall to deliver this speech was an opportunity to network and to highlight the work that we had been doing. And so, I went downtown. I went and gave the speech. I, tried to represent in the best way possible what also makes sense. And it's interesting because today I actually wore this suit that I wore when I was giving the speech. I gave the speech. There was a point where we were to read the poem, we were to light the candle, did all of that. There was the rabbi who spoke about Hanukkah. I was there to speak about Kwanzaa. And then, of course, we took pictures afterward. Other public officials posted the photos on their social media and all of that. And so, after the speech was over, let me fast forward. After the speech was over, I, I met with the commissioner. I met with people. I gave them my card. Hey, this is what we do. This is maybe ways we can support. All of that happened, and it was amazing. In fact, I think before it, I even did like a social media post about how what an amazing opportunity this was. I'm feeling that this is a part of my purpose and etc. And everything is amazing and wonderful. In fact, everything was amazing for about a month. This was December the 24th. And of course, the 24th, 22nd, I don't know. I'm lost on the date. Maybe not the 24th, but that's Christmas Eve. It was the 20th something of December. Went through that. Christmas break came up, we had our vacation. We wasn't really in office. New Year's happened and all of that. And then my daughter's birthday was in January. And in January of 2025, we got the amazing opportunity to go to Egypt. And I need to do a whole nother video because I got pictures of Egypt. We went to Egypt and we had an amazing time. And we rode camels and we saw the pyramids, and it was absolutely life-changing to go there and to see the place you only read about in books. That's another video. Come back from Egypt, celebrating the holidays, celebrating my daughter's birthday, this amazing trip. And so now we're kind of getting back in the rhythm of going into the office. And so I go into the office and seeing everybody and telling people about, oh, we just came back from Egypt, and sharing photos and people who have remember, I'd been working there 8 years. And so people who remember Harper as a baby, and it's sort of like this whole family thing, whatever. Um, then and I'm not exactly sure of the date. I don't have my notes, but I was there and I was asked to have a meeting with my supervisor, and I'm like, great, because at this time I'm thinking about what does 2025 look like? What's the direction? What are the decisions we're going to make? How we're going to restructure things? We had talked about, doing tabling events and how we wanted to change that, how we could be better, how I could be better used in this position. Because sometimes we would go to tabling events and it's like you talk to one or two people, but it really isn't um, getting any traction or results. And so what I was um what I was I was looking at this. I don't know if my mic's still working. I'll take it off. That's what I'll do. I was planning out the following year, seeing what 2025 was going to look like. And so when I was told that we were going to have this meeting, I was excited because, okay, let's regroup after the holidays and move forward. When I went into the meeting, I was asked, um, so you did a speech. What was that about? And it's been about a month, right? And I'm like, well, oh yeah. A friend of mine reached out to me and shared about this opportunity to talk about Kwanzaa, and I thought that it was in line with my role. What I also did not mention is that there were talks with the chief of staff about how, it had to be about Kwanzaa. It wasn't about proselytizing, right? This wasn't me giving a sermon. And so, because of the parameters that were set for doing the speech at City Hall, I knew that it was right in line with the parameters of my job. I'm going to talk about Kwanzaa. I'm going to talk about our shared humanity. I'm going to talk about how we can be a help to one another. This isn't a church event, right? We're not asking anybody to come to the altar. This is going to be directly in line with my role, my responsibility, and the way that I represent myself for work, right? And so this was the other reason why I accepted it, and I saw this being a part of my job. So my supervisor says, well, um, I didn't know this at the time, but the speech was broadcast on the news or something. And so he's asking me about it, and I said, well, I felt like this was an opportunity to network, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem came that the organization was not mentioned. And I said, well, I sent in my bio mentioning that I was there to represent the organization. The elected official who spoke before me was supposed to introduce me, and they didn't read the bio. When I got up to speak, expecting to be introduced, I went right into the speech and did not introduce myself. But I was there on behalf of my role as a community engagement coordinator for a nonprofit organization in the city of Chicago. Um, we had a few minutes of dialogue, and then I was told that I was being let go. And I remember saying to him, well, this is in line with my role. I've always gone to community events. I've always used those events as an opportunity for follow-up to partner and to, you know, move the mission forward. I've always gone to things and then come back and reported and showed ways that we could um, use this as an opportunity. This is nothing different than what I have always done. And I have emails showing you that I went and told them who I was to represent. The problem was this was a friend of mine, so he emailed me on my personal email because clearly they had looked through my work email and they didn't see the communication. Of course, I was shocked. I was um, the wind was knocked out of me. I was looking forward to planning what this new year was going to be, and now I was without a job. Um, and so I left out. And
I called my wife and told her. Um, and she was supportive, but you understand the impact of the checks you are expecting every 2 weeks that stopped and you don't know what else is going to happen. And so I had a few conversations after that. One, there seemed to be this assertion that I was not there to represent the organization. I was there to represent myself. And I'm like, what? I didn't get paid. There was no um, um, benefit to this. I thought I was doing my job. In fact, I said, listen, if this was not work related, nothing would have prohibited me for clocking out, using it as my lunch, and not being on company time. I stayed on company time because I thought this was a part of engaging the community. Oh, I had conversations. I sent a letter to the CEO. The head of HR responded to me and said, we'll have a conversation. Yeah, let's sit down and review the information. I said, we need to talk about this because I think that this is unfair. I talked to elected officials who said, wait a minute, what's going on? Do I need to call them? Like you came to do a speech for us and the organization that you represented is firing you over it. There was all of this. And you know, when things like that happen, you begin to think like, what do I need to do? Do I need to sue? Do I like what's the next step? I don't know how to deal with this. I was supposed to have another sit down with the organization, sort of explain and kind of talk through this. And instead of a conversation, I was met with an email that said, oh, we looked at the video. You never mentioned us. You never mentioned the organization. This was, it was like you're stealing time. You're just out there trying to do things for yourself, and you were not pushing the organization. And so I was fired. Do I have a lesson in that? I don't know. Um, there were some thoughts about maybe my time was up there. Um, there were, sometimes in organizations or companies, there are changes and people are moving around, and there were people who left, and you kind of begin to sense like is something going on that is not being spoken. Um, if you believe in the sovereignty of God, sometimes um, things happen and you wonder, was I being protected from something? Does God have a different plan in mind? And that does not always get rid of the pain and the shock and the trauma of thinking you were doing the right thing and it being misinterpreted as you doing something nefarious or something simply for yourself. I look for jobs, question what's next, what am I supposed to do? And I'm now working for another organization that um, is more direct service, but once again, I love the mission and am trying to do it to the best of my ability. And so as I reflect on 2025, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot. Um, but I'm grateful for this opportunity, even though it's the speech that got me fired. Um, let's try to find some lessons. Are there some things I could have done differently? Probably. Were my intentions pure? They were. Um, here's one lesson I'll say, and then I'll end. I think because I liked the role and because I saw how the role connected to pastoring, when I was looking for a job and trying to find something else, I realized that I had tied my identity to the possibilities of what I thought that role would be able to afford. I loved the title. I loved the sense of purpose that came with announcing who I was. I loved going to community events in my own community and saying, listen, I also worked with this organization. This is what we do. This is how you can volunteer. I love gathering people from my church to come and make lunches for the homeless to go out. I loved the synergy of the things that were important, that are important to me, um, and my place of employment. And one of the things that happened when that job ended is that I had to fight to still do those things I feel called to do and still be who I have been called to be, even though in my mind I was losing the safety net of the role in this organization. And I think sometimes we don't talk about how we begin to orchestrate and base our lives on these titles and these positions. And when people say, who are you? Oh, I'm so and so. I work for such and such. This is the role that I do. And it becomes so ingrained in our identity that sometimes there is a fracture and a need for healing for you to understand that you are who you are despite the title that you wear or the organization that you are a part of. That you are no less giving and no less philanthropic and you are no less of a help to people, even though your relationship with the place you helped through has ended. And so one of the lessons for me really became about identity. Who are you? What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? There are some things you gained in that season that is necessary for this season, even though the relationships are not the same or the way you thought it would be. That's really where I want to end because sometimes it is the death of our expectations that rock us the most. But if you stay in there, you can find purpose in the process and you can find God's promise even in the pain. It still hurt a little bit, but it don't hurt as much. And according to Romans 8 and 28, God works all things together for the good. Thank you for letting me vent. Thank you for letting me share that. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the video there. I was sharing this to YouTube, which I normally don't do. So I may need to edit this video down. But if anything was said, resonated with you, feel free to let me know. And until next time, that's it. Love you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.